kids, welcome to Stylus Rumble Fx Guide thing. Today we're going to be doing something really special. Maybe you can guess from the image that I've got here already. So if you haven't checked it out, I did a hangout with Tony Teach from TonyTeach.com. He's got that posted up on his YouTube channel where we goof around and play with some smoke and just talk about effects and stuff, and I gab a lot. So that's really cool. Go check that out. And he made a special request at the end of that I do some barf animation. And so I was like, yeah, I could do barf. And then I thought, you know, I don't really want to do gross barf, so I'm going to do some unicorn barf, alright? I'm going to talk a little bit about how you'd set that up and stuff, and some different options. Also, I did an interview with my friend Simon Paquette, so check that one out as well, and please go and thank him for joining us. He is on Twitter at Reptoid Games or at Simon the Shmoo. I'll post those links down below. He's going to come back in September and talk to us all about storyboards. This guy is so good with story. So if you have any storyboard related questions, you can leave them over on that video or here, or even go bug him in real life on Twitter and be like, hey Simon, because we should mine every resource to the utmost, and Simon is such a great resource, and it was awesome of him to drop by and to offer to come back again later. Alright, so let's do some barf. Announcements over. So the first thing I did, I want to do, well, my colors are a little bit more pastel-y because I just feel super cute, but I'm going to do more of a traditional rainbow shape. My barf will be more what you expect, like this sort of thing. My brush is way too big. You know, that's sort of a stripey going along the beam thing. But I wanted to just show you this way instead. So if you want to do a barbershop puke, something like this, the easiest way to set that up is to create just a big spiral like length of just swooshies with sort of some squiggles on it. These are technical terms, remember them, swooshies and stuff. And then you just hook it up through a tube cutter. So here's my little tube and here's my big stripey. And when you put those together and you just animate it along the length of it, then you're going to get this barbershop sort of a pole look. So if you needed to do a hyper like rainbow puke going this way, that'd be what I would do. And then either you would set your tube up in the specific shape and then make sure that your spiral stripies are wide enough to facilitate that shape, or you could put a deformation, this sort of thing. You may want to play around with how this actually works because you can see that it's getting some zigzags. These deformations aren't the best with patterns. So here you can see it's sort of a zigzag pattern as opposed to straight stripes. But if you're feeling really crazy, you could come in here and try playing with the influence. So if we change this to an elliptic influence, it'll shatter it. And if we change it to shape, usually it's set to infinite. You can set it to 0 and it's not going to do anything. So if you needed something crazy, you could throw a quick elliptic influence on here and it's going to break it, but that might look okay. Who knows? Let's set them all to elliptic and see how that feels. Oh, things are getting worse. Yeah, so we went too far with it. I just wanted to let you know that you can in fact go in here and change these things, and you could get some fun effects just by breaking your stuff. Because if you're doing rainbow puke, maybe you want it to look like that. I mean, that looks pretty sweet, right? And I mean, it's an accident of the software, but it's a pretty great one. You could also put a quad map on it. Shift F11 will display your display things. You could use your control, you know, play with that as much as you want. See what kind of shapes you can get. Now you're going to get it looking a little bit more like you've got smaller down here and bigger up here. You're also getting, well, it's going the wrong direction, but you get the point. You can get some pretty cool rainbow beams that way just by using a quick cutter, as opposed to trying to get this in a more frame by frame kind of way. That would just take forever. Let's not do that. We have technology now. That's enough for that one. So the real thing about barf is if you got something like this, I mean, you could go as crazy as you wanted frame by framing the perfect barf and then the perfect splatter. But then you get into a situation where your character has to spin around and do what we like to call a puke sprinkler. I like that animation. I make the big bucks, kids. Blah, 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 blah. Right, so if you have a puke sprinkler, you actually need your barf to change shape and stuff. So if we want to make something that's movable and it's made in pieces, so we'll go with beam. And you always name your stuff, please. Boop. And I'm going to use the same one to make sure that they're all the same size. So I'll just copy paste it, move it, and you can recolor it. I'm going to make it straight. like I did with the other thing, because now we can throw a quick deformer on here. I'm going to use a curve deformer. And now I'm going to be able to change the shape of my rainbow. So here I've got a rainbow-shaped rainbow, or you got an S-shaped rainbow. Whee! So that's just with a curve deformer. We can do the same thing we did that on the other one. So now we've got our envelope deformer, and if we play around with that, it's not working out as good. Okay. So the envelope deformer certainly has its advantages in places, but as you can see here, it's not always going to give you the effect that you need. And spending a ton of time in here trying to do like shaped influences or elliptic influences or mucking around with it, you're not always guaranteed to get what you need in any sort of reasonable time frame. See, like even when you, like, this is exploding down here, like it's just not a good. It's not a good fit for our rainbow barf. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create the shape out of these guys before we even get to anything. So I know I want my rainbow to be smaller on one side and bigger on the other. All right, so you be as meticulous as you need to get that working. And now we can throw our curve deformer on there. And we've got the best of both worlds. We've got that perspective, and we've got the manipulatable shape. So we can have it coming down like here, in an arc. And we've got our pretty rainbow. So if we wanted this to look like it's moving, what we can do is the same sort of cheat that we did before. Let's just pop our deformer off, and we can create a couple drawing substitutions. So depending on the style of your barf, you may want to actually make these wiggly shapes. So as opposed to straights, you can have your barf coming out like this. And depending on whether you're a drawer or a contour person, you can actually just draw over like this and just change your edges with the colors and flatten it. Whatever works for you. We'll try doing 3 or 4 drawings where we just shift this all around. Get some nice random wigglies happen. Alright. So I've got a 3-frame cycle. It's got a few little bumps that you might want to work out depending on how you're feeling. And then we can just slide our beam deformer back in, and it's just going to line up because we haven't really changed the overall shape. So because I'm doing this in pieces, if the director didn't like the first one because it was too straight, I could throw in a wiggly one like this very easily just by replacing the beam, because I know what shape I need and how long it needs to be. So if you keep it relatively close to the same size and shape, then you're going to be able to just pop your deformer in there and it's going to work out. Changeability is really important if you're working on a television show or any kind of thing where you don't have the final say in the design of anything. And now we can take our horse rotation. Oh, I didn't give him a horn, you guys. How is it a unicorn if he has no horn? That's better. So now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste special, and down here where it says normal, down the options, cycles, normal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write reverse to forward, and I just paste it a bunch of times. So now our horse is going back and forth because I had it pasted the right way. So I'm like, okay, now I want you to paste it reversed and then forward and reverse and forward as many times as I've said. So now our horse is freaking out and spinning back and forth because he didn't do any back views because he's really lazy. And we can hook up our beam to each of those views. Keyframe on frame 1. Over here, and then we pull our barf over like this. And then in the next frame, do the same thing. Now the front barf, you may be saying to yourself, but Tracy, the front barf's going to look weird because we want it to go up and then down. It is going to look a little weird. What we need to do, pull this up higher, and we're going to add a cutter. Because we're assuming our rainbow beam is opaque, so we won't be able to see any of the stuff behind. So let's go to our node library and grab our cutter, and we're going to hack off the top part. So we're just going to use a regular cutter, and I'm going to add an overall beam peg up here because we're going to need to paste this little guy later. I'm going to fill this in with an empty, fill this guy in here with our empty one too. Just so we don't have any empty exposure down here, because if we start pasting things or dragging things around, then it might try and fill in the empty places, and I don't want that to happen. Doing that little trick of just hacking it off like that may cause some tweening problems if you have to tween it, but I feel like it's going to be easier to just edit the in-betweens on it and play around with a little bit of a cutter than to try and come up with any other solutions. You could also come back in here a little bit with the puke, because we could use the horse's mouth as a cutter as well, so it doesn't need to be 100% perfect. Now, we go up to our top beam, and we collapse it, and we go all the way to the end, where we know our cycle reverses. Copy, paste special. This setting is already the same thing, so we can paste it. Whee! So now when we play it, we've got our unicorn barfing in all the directions. Whee! Now, one thing you want to think about, I don't know if it'll bother you or not, but here we've got our ready sort of color on top, and as it rotates, it switches to the bottom. It doesn't bother me that much. It may be something that I want to play around with. I don't think it's that big a deal. Not for a demo. You may actually have to go in and do drawing substitutions and just flip these ones if you insist that the red is on the top. But yeah, I don't feel like it. So I've been thinking, like, what should go in Rainbow Barf, because I think Tony suggested carrots and peas or celery or something really gross. So instead of doing that, I'm gonna do some cute stuff. So let's do some little white stars. Okay, so I'm just copying and pasting all my little stars here. Big line so I can be really economical. And what we're gonna do is use the beam as a cutter for our stars. So because I've animated this beam using this peg, I need to plug my stars into that beam too. Because as I move the beam around, I want these to move around. I also want to plug the deformer in because I want it to follow along the trail. But for now, I'm actually going to unplug this deformer. Okay, so now my stars, which I'm going to name. So if I just run my cute stars along the barf, they're not going to be spreading out. All right, so what I'm going to do is I have a choice between either making it really, really wide, like this. So now, as I run my stars along, more stars are going to be displayed. So let's see how that works. I'm going to make this even longer. I want just a stupid amount of stars. All right, so frame 1, we want stars all the way along. And a frame, we want our stars down here. So let's take a little peek, see how, I feel like that's an acceptable length of distance for stars. That's a good star speed. I'm going to plug my beam in to both of these, and we're going to use that cutter I promised you guys. Boop, boop. So this one's going to be an inverted cutter because we only want our stars to exist when the beam is present. Right. Now, see what happened? Remember we used a cutter here? Oh, so the beam, we also want this cutter to be involved with the idea about the beam. So instead of using the beam itself, we're going to use the beam plus the cutter as a cutter. You can do that. You can nest these cutters for days and make all sorts of crazy stuff. I feel pretty good about that. I like that this is happening. We can replace these hearts. I mean, we could, or stars. They're stars. We can, let's put some stuff on the stars. It's not a great drawing of a horse. Oh, you can't even see it in the render view. That's probably for the best. That's not a good drawing of a horse. Okay, so what I'm going to do, you have a choice here between adding the effects above the cutter so that the effect won't come outside of this crease at all, because if we put a blur down here, then it's going to bloom out a little bit, so it won't be super crisp edge, but I think I feel okay about that. So what I'm going to do is blur the star, but then also put in a sharp star ahead of it, and then it'll give us a cheap little glow. Is that pure white? It's as white as it goes. I think it's because it's on a light color, it's not feeling really punchy to me. So let's try an actual glow. So I'm going to use the source color, which is white. I'm going to turn my intensity up a bunch. And my blur feels nice. I like that. That's pretty happy. I can use my original drawing to sharpen the edges a little bit if I feel like it's not sharp enough. Nice. I'm also going to throw glow on this. Let's get rid of these rough barfs that we put in our unicorn drawing, because I put them on another drawing layer. I think maybe, I'm just not feeling it. Maybe we put the glow in the back. Instead of using the source color, we'll use like a nice pastel-y color. I'm not feeling it. Oh yeah! I like that. If I just put like a regular blur on there, on top of the glow, kind of like where that's headed. And then we've got this crisp, we get rid of that one. Ooh, I like it. That's kind of nice. Now I feel like this is a little bit too crazy. Yeah, I feel like I like that blurry. I feel like I like that blurry rainbow effect. Maybe we can just put a little bit more blur on these. No, I feel like it's too blurry. Let's keep those kind of sharp. Let's render this puke out and see what it looks like. So a lot of, like, once you get into compositing this effect and adding a lot of these layers, you do have to run them out to see how they look, because they might look good in a still, but it might not look as good when it starts running through those drawing changes. Let's just see. Oh, it does look as good. Yeah! Blah. Star barf! I mean, I can't see my unicorn. So that's kind of a downer, but I like it. I think what I also, instead of just stars, maybe I want my barf to be twinkly. So I'm going to throw in a quick twinkle effect. So if you haven't taken a look at my particle effects episodes, I'm just going to throw in a particle effect, a particle emitter that I've created for sparkles, and I'm going to create a new little sparkle right now. So, and I'm going to zoom into this beautiful unicorn eye that it clearly took several seconds to draw for you. And I'm going to create a little twinkle. I could probably spend an entire episode on twinkles and sparkles and the difference. Do a couple different ones. So the first one's going to be a vertical twinkle pop. The second one is going to be something like this. So this is going to be a twinkle, like a rotating twinkle, where it goes, it's big and twirls. So there. All right, so now I'm plugging in my twinkles to the setup I've already created. All right, so now I'm going to plug my beam plus my cutter into my sparkle effect node, and this is going to give me some animated twinkles. So again, we got to render it because I like this blurry. I like the blurry rainbow, and this feels pretty good to me. I think it'd be even better if it was still. I'm just going to take out all of these keyframes. So we can just F7 on all these keyframes and it's not going to rotate anymore. And then we can drag it back here. So cover our entire screen. Well, yes, I do. The thing you need to add is the part where it actually, like the mouth wraps around the beam here at the beginning. And then if there's an impact, of course, that would also need some work. Yay! Rainbow beam bar. I might need to do an impact animation, and I might need to clean up my my ratchet unicorn here. Whee! Alright, so that's my unicorn barf with sparkles and stars. Of course, if you're doing that star thing, you could throw in a bunch of different shapes at a bunch of different speeds if you wanted to. And if your director says, hey, you put in mushrooms, but I wanted you to put in corn, you could easily switch that up by just switching out the drawings in the thing and then animating along the tube. It's much faster than frame by framing your barf particles along an entire beam and then getting told that they want something else. But of course, if you have a scene where the character has one pose, one epic barf, then you can do it custom and it'll look ultra sweet. You won't, it'll always look better. You could have rotating food, all sorts of grossness or sparkly cuteness, depending on what your ultimate goal is. The limit is really only your imagination. So hopefully this was fun, if not educational. I had fun. I hope to do a liquid impact in the future, which may or may not involve rainbow barf. It's a lengthier thing to animate, and my choices are always based on my real life schedule. All right, so please check out Reptoid Games and the Simon interview, and also go over and check out the Hangout with Tony Teach and give him a high five for reaching out and setting that up. All right, thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you in the next video.